It's easy to look at a typical American suburb and see a collection of separate, isolated lives. But on this street, everyone shared one thing in common: a golden retriever named Buddy. He belonged to everyone. He would wait by the curb for the mail carrier, walk alongside kids heading to the bus stop, and greet families pulling into their driveways. He was the gentle rhythm of the entire neighborhood. But that rhythm only lasted while the sun was up. When night fell, the street went quiet, the doors locked, and the neighborhood became completely isolated from the outside world. By 2 o'clock in the morning, human biology creates a massive blind spot. When we enter deep sleep, our primary senses essentially turn off. We stop processing sounds, and our sense of smell goes almost entirely dormant. This diagram shows a side-by-side comparison between our dormant state and a dog's active biology. Notice how the canine olfactory system remains highly engaged. It continuously pulls in and processes millions of microscopic particles from the surrounding air, even while the dog is at rest. Deep in the night, Buddy's biological alarm triggered. He smelled something no human could. It was faint, just a few stray, microscopic particles of smoke drifting through the dark room. A fire was quietly igniting nearby. Dozens of people were asleep within yards of a lethal threat, completely unaware. Buddy was the only living creature processing the danger, but he lacked a human voice to sound the alarm. As the smoke thickened, his response was immediate. He bolted outside, running from house to house. He scratched violently at front doors, specifically targeting the home of an elderly neighbor who lived alone, and let out a relentless, booming bark. Inside, a few neighbors finally stirred. They peeked through heavy curtains, saw a dog barking on their lawn in the middle of the night, and crawled back into bed, deeply annoyed. It was a total failure of cross-species communication. Buddy's instinct was firing at maximum intensity to signal a life or death emergency. The humans heard a noisy animal begging for attention. Every passing second allowed the heat to build. The entire street's survival now depended entirely on a frantic message they were actively trying to shut out. Over the next 15 minutes, the faint scent of smoke materialized into physical destruction. Flames broke through the walls of a local garage, feeding on oxygen and rapidly accelerating. The heat intensified and the air grew toxic. Yet Buddy absolutely refused to retreat. He planted himself on the lawn, increasing his desperate begging as the physical glow of the fire illuminated the thick smoke behind him. Finally, a neighbor hit their breaking point. They marched to the front entryway and threw the door open, fully intending to shout the dog down. Instead, they were hit by a wall of intense heat and blinding flames. In that split second, the human's visual senses finally caught up to the reality Buddy's nose had processed a quarter of an hour earlier. Visual confirmation shattered the communication barrier. Annoyance instantly evaporated into absolute panic, and the emergency response began. Neighbors scrambled into the street in their pajamas. Amidst the flashing lights, Buddy stayed beside the elderly woman whose door he first scratched, nudging her toward the safe perimeter the fire department had established. Firefighters arrived shortly after and managed to contain the blaze. But when they analyzed the scene the next day, the true margins of survival became incredibly clear. This timeline chart shows the brutal math of the blaze. Modern homes are full of synthetic materials that burn extremely hot and fast. Within a brief 15-minute window, the heat and toxicity curve of a standard house fire spikes exponentially, often reaching lethal levels before internal alarms trigger. Now, look at this secondary plot point. Buddy's biological alarm went off 15 minutes prior to the physical danger threshold. That shaded gap on the graph represents the exact amount of time he bought the neighborhood. Because canine biology secured those extra minutes, a situation mathematically guaranteed to be a mass tragedy resulted in 0 casualties. By sunrise, the street was calm again. Families stood together, looking at the charred remains of the garage, fully aware of what could have been. They honored the dog who had saved them with a heavy, polished medal. Buddy had no concept of applause or civic awards. He had simply acted on an ancient, unyielding instinct to protect his pack at all costs. The community's view of Buddy shifted permanently. He occupied a new position in the neighborhood hierarchy, an unyielding, recognized protector. A single night proved that true loyalty easily overcomes the barrier of language. From that morning on, he earned a permanent new title, Hero Buddy.